Hi everyone, and welcome to your weekly energy update, a general intuitive psychic tarot guidance which takes a look at how the energies at play this week are likely to be influencing our lives both individually and collectively. This reading also contains things that the divine might advise us to do in a specific way and naturally things to be careful with. But of course, with every general reading, just take in what resonates and simply discard the rest, because I always say that everyone's inner voice and intuition is more than enough to guide them. So these readings may just serve as a confirmation of what you're sensing and feeling and nothing more. Now the cards which depict the general energy at play are the Ten of Fire reversed, the Wheel of Fortune reversed, and the Seven of Fire. In this specific tarot deck, the fire just represents the wands, so it's very easy to make the correlation, especially those who already know tarot, especially the minor arcana. So it's basically the Ten of Wands reversed and the Seven of Wands. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, even with no cards, even with no reading, we can simply feel a very strange, almost pressing energy in the air. It feels like a very strange silence, yet it is in this silence where we find ourselves, especially internally, for some people even in their dreams, night dreams, are preparing them for a big change, a big turnaround of events. Or in other words, where very soon life is going to feel very, very different. And I do believe that this is perfectly valid both individually, but at the same time collectively as well. And one of the reasons why this feeling is so very strong is that the sheer karmic force, the divine influence of the upcoming eclipse, which is a lunar eclipse, but a super full moon, meaning that the moon is that much closer to the earth, and it's also a total lunar eclipse, which is kind of rare. And when I mean the eclipse, well, this has almost nothing to do with astrology. I'm leaving the astrology totally out of this. Eclipses take place regardless if we know any astrology, regardless of the system we use. It is something that simply takes place in the sky. And even the most primitive, primordial human groups and the very first establishments, like the cavemen, for example, they knew when something this powerful physically happens in the sky, well, that is like a powerful change. It is when the veil between the worlds is especially thin and big things usually happen. And because it's a lunar eclipse, lunar eclipses almost like inject the spirit into the world of matter. It is when the soul, the spirit, the mystery of the divine, or better said, the divine architecture, just simply invades our physical realm and it has some kind of effect. And again, I mentioned this has absolutely nothing to do with astrology. A lunar eclipse, a total lunar eclipse, is an eclipse regardless of what system we use to look at it. So the end of May is definitely going to be extremely powerful, also a very auspicious day, because such a strong lunar activity, the light, the luminary is the truth, and when it is eclipsed, well, it is like the divine's perspective of the truth, and not that much ours as humankind's, but neither any other being, which is just a child or a creation of the divine. This is where The divine source shows all of us what it regards as the truth. So this is where what we might personally, collectively think, what even other much higher beings than us do, think, feel, envisage, or want to create, none of that matters, because this is pure divine energy and nothing can simply counter it. And at the same time, lunar eclipses are always powerful moments of manifestation when magic happens. And magic doesn't really take polarities. What you focused on for a long time, well, it is what you're gonna get, regardless of if that is, let's just say, trying your best to overcome a personal limitation, or maybe desires and thoughts and feelings of vengeance against someone. It doesn't take sides or polarities. What you put into it is what you're gonna get, and this is perfectly valid collectively as well. And one of the big themes that has been playing out collectively, well, it was like a desire for truth, a desire for everyone to be able to make sense of what is happening. So chances are that will definitely be part of the eclipse. Because that is what we ask for, regardless of, let's say, our culture, of which country we live in, of which, let's say, storyline we focus on, the COVID or the economic problem, the spiritual problem. It doesn't even matter if we're like highly spiritual people or the most mundane, most earthly person possible, because the desire of truth, this is where everyone, their own unique personal ways, wished and desired, and perhaps is still desiring to just know what's actually going on and what they might have to do in order to cope with it, deal with it, live with it, adapt, or whatever that may be. So this might be like a very general theme for everyone, regardless of what political, spiritual, any kind of beliefs they have, or what kind of theories they believe in. Everyone asked the truth, and that is what is going to be given to us. Yet also there is the other side of this spectrum where it's a lunar eclipse, so we still have to process the truth, and it's still going to be subjective, yet that subjectivity is going to be extremely helpful and strong. So what it means for us personally, our souls, why we are here in this life, and naturally how it will influence our destinies further. But of course all of this is a theme for another reading. As I said, the eclipse is at 26th of May, but it's so very powerful that we already feel it. Our inner mechanisms are already preparing us for that moment. And by this, I'm not actually suggesting that something will happen exactly on the 26th of May, but usually around that time, a week before, a month after. So, that is usually the range of influence. But of course, what we do with it, how we process it, well, that really, really depends on us. But as I was saying, we're already feeling this, and not just, with our intuitive senses. Some people feel it deeply in their instincts, in their guts. So everyone with their own unique sensory perceptions. For example, some people around this time are experiencing like their ears ringing very intensely and strongly. Other people just feel palpitations, unexplainable moments of anxiety, but which aren't really the classical, as in destructive kind of anxiety, but it's a very unusual, a very weird state of being. And naturally the most highly sensitive people, well, they are bombarded with all these empathic feelings, perceptions, dreams and visions and even prophecies, even their inner voices enlivening to such a great degree that they're actually speaking with themselves very coherently, as in like almost practical information, things that one cannot deny. And this is exactly what the Ten of Wands, Fire Reversed, and the Wheel of Fortune Reversed are symbolizing. Because the Ten of Fire, well, even in the graphic depiction of this specific tarot deck, it shows a forest fire. A forest fire is a massive purge. It is a big reset of the forest ecosystem. And chances are, well, we already experienced this on so very many levels in our lives individually and collectively. And even in a physical sense, remember before the COVID situation and the virus broke out and everything, the massive Amazon forest fires and the bushfires in Australia, which really left the devastation. Well, that was a clear sign from Mother Nature, as clear, as physical as possible, that a purge is being prepared. And lead by example. So if she is the source of our life, well, she was first. And those who were wise enough to understand, they prepared themselves, at least internally, that this will also happen psychologically, spiritually, and naturally also in society, politics, economics, and everything. But because this card is reversed, well, it doesn't depict the forest fire anymore. It depicts the regeneration, the healing. It depicts the period which takes place after the forest fire. Well, the very first phase is a deadly silence. The very first phase is the sheer shock of it, when life is, for the first time, silent, because it suffered such a big loss. And we can also associate that silence with the social distancing period when we were kind of forced to put a silence on our each and everyday lives, meeting each other, the parties, the celebrations, the laughter, and of course for some people the conflict and the verbal battles. It did silence us, but yet there is a bliss. There is a promise of renewal in that silence, and we're already through that phase as well. This Ten of Fire depicts when, after the forest fire and after the rain set in, renewed life starts to appear. But even though the new life force is extremely strong, well, first of all, because it's not overpopulated, it has room to breathe. It has room to grow at its own pace. There is no longer that struggle, that competition, because the forest fire kind of took care of all of that. So this new spark of life is kind of shy, and it doesn't hurry. And it has all that potential food, because the ashes and everything, even the carcasses that burn to crisp, well, that feeds the soil, but that needs a little bit of time to turn into like true food, minerals, etc. So the earth needs to integrate that as well and transform it into different kind of nourishments that some that plants use, others that animals can use. So the ecosystem is reestablishing its order. It is trying to reestablish a new kind of harmony. It is exactly like the Star card arises after a Tower moment. And if this symbolic forest fire that all of us experience taught us anything, well, that is patience. So it took all this time for that Wheel of Fortune to finally promise to turn once more. When the Wheel of Fortune is reversed, that represents the promise of the divine that however you see this Wheel of Fortune, like good luck, fortune, karma, fate, equilibrium, the new cycle, the next, etc. Well, it is going to turn very soon. But it's still just a promise. It turns gradually. So we're caught up in that moment where we're already regenerating from the symbolic forest fire, our losses, everything that we had to endure in all possible expressions, psychologically, spiritually, socially, relationship-wise. Also, it's not just us, but the world in general. Our species, the collective, everything that it had to endure. The forest fire, when we were caught up in the flames symbolically, was also a period of great, great, great fear and basically paranoia and even, let's say, mass psychosis. But, that is perfectly understandable and natural because even the survivors of the forest fire are left with a strong trauma and fear. And besides our old wounds and all of the karmic charging that we carried with us all throughout our lives, we also had to purge out and heal the shock that the COVID and, when basically our old normality was taken away from us, left on us. So it was like a double healing, not just the past, but the present as well. And that is exactly, this Wheel of Fortune is reversed, and it represents just the promise, because it has to be gentle on us. It also represents the divine's intent, that it has every single intention to heal us and regenerate us, but it has to do it gently. And this Seven of Fire is also extremely symbolic, because regardless of what we suffered, regardless of what happened to us, and regardless of how we are feeling right now, how strongly those intuitive or let's say even instinctual perceptions may influence us, well, we're still working on our plans, we're still holding our heads high, we're still having faith, we're still refining ourselves, our mental sphere, our hearts, and basically the hope for the future. But we're doing it exactly the right way. We're doing it with patience. We're doing it with this intent of resilience, with valor, with dignity, with bravery. It didn't break our spirits. And no matter what happened to us, we're still here, we're still strong, and we're still not giving up. Quite the contrary. It made us that much stronger. And the Seven of Fire, the weaker we feel materially, the more challenged we feel, let's say, socially, economically, and anything that has to do with the real life plane, so to speak, 3D, the stronger we are spiritually. Basically, we are that blacksmith forging, creating, refining, or perhaps adding the finishing touches, the decorations, the ornamental elements to our future, the future that we built on truth. So individually, what these combination of cards mean, well, even if we won't manage to do all that much this week, even if we feel a little bit carried away by emotion, by desire, even if we might be still licking our wounds, symbolically speaking, or for others, maybe they're caught up in work, maybe they're extremely busy and not able to connect to their own philosophical moments. Well, it doesn't really matter, because inside of us we're already different and we're already extremely powerful. And chances are that the feelings, the intuitive senses are just foreshadowing just how much power and strength this eclipse is going to be giving us. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be a very easy energy, because for some of us the biggest blessing is losing misaligned beliefs. It is shedding off a lot of things that weigh us down, especially on the soul level and spiritually. But when we shed something off, something radical, like a belief system, well, the truth takes its place immediately. So either way, it is a massive blessing because it will definitely change how we perceive reality, because it is like the divine source, personally of our own unique way, giving all of us either the confirmation that we needed for a long time to know without a shadow of a doubt that we are on the right path, and for others it will upgrade their path, their value systems, their spiritual beliefs, so that they can align to a greater truth. So either way, it will be like a gift from the source. And a lot of people might feel so very tired, so very exhausted, including physically and sometimes with no rational explanation. Well, that is because our souls are hitting that iron and keep on doing it until it glows red, because the soul knows just how important it is to give the right shape and right weight to our futures, basically, and that person who we are becoming. Now, collectively speaking, these cards might depict something totally else. The Wheel of Fortune with the Ten of Fire reversed, while it's not the most amazing and wonderful sign, because it can speak about accidents, explosions, natural calamities, a situation getting out of control, a situation which may seem as a misfortune, as a very unlucky event. It can also speak about the political, legislative stagnation, because leaders and politicians and, let's say, judges can simply not agree. The Ten of Fire reverse can also mean the refusal of cooperation. And if just one element, one player, internationally speaking, refuses to cooperate, well, it will stagnate everyone else. It can also speak about a world leader or the leader of a country culture either having to stop, take a break due to health problems, but it can also mean stepping down. And the Seven of Fire can represent charitable humanitarian efforts, increasing efforts to help people or countries or cultures in great difficulties. It means effort. It means that extra mile that we're willing to go in order to help, in order to give others like a fighting chance, so to speak. But, collectively, the waters are definitely going to be turbulent, either because of external events, as I said, maybe a calamity, maybe an accident, an explosion, or internally, as in something happens politically, a big power player blocks the whole world, someone steps down, or someone, a very important person, gets blocked. But chances are, the Seven of Fire also depicts that individually for us, well, our work, our fight, our efforts to basically fix our lives or advance, and whatever we are doing at the present moment, continue. So our own unique ways, us individually, are kind of minding our own businesses. Now, as a divine guidance and divine advice, we have the Bindweed Reversed, which is the Devil in Classic Tarot, and the Five of Earth, which is the Five of Coins. And this is such a really powerful and positive message, because the Devil reversed, but if we take a look at the symbolism this tarot deck uses, it's that much more symbolic, the bindweed, something that kept us bound, our beliefs, our mental configuration, our expectations, our mindset, our relationships, or our egos, our wounds, whatever that means for us personally. For some people it can be like something very concrete, something very physical, like a boss, their jobs, a wrong career path, their unfavorable economic situation, especially with that five of earth. For others, it's their physical health. And because this bindweed is reversed, well, we did free ourselves. We put in great effort from every single perspective, spiritually, mentally, psychologically, intellectually, and of course physically as well. So that five of earth moment, that five of coins, all that made us vulnerable, all that made us feel disadvantaged, regardless in which sense, well, that is slowly but surely ending. And we might get the first breath of either freedom, fresh air, almost like a foreshadowing of the futures we already built for ourselves. We might get a very symbolic mini moment of that next week, and that can give us a lot of hope. That can make us not just continue freeing ourselves from the bindweed, but actually killing the bindweed from its very roots. And on the other hand, this might be extremely unusual, but for some people, next week they might have an unexpected or unplanned walk or trip or invitation by someone special to either go to a forest, go to a place which is in the heart of nature or dominated by nature, plants, trees, etc. And they might get a powerful spiritual moment, a powerful spiritual experience or synchronicity, the moment they will see either some specific birds like a blackbird or a crow or a magpie. So that moment of synchronicity will deliver them a divine message or a kind of vision. And another message that I'm receiving is that other people have surrendered their biggest dreams, their biggest wishes, their biggest goals to the universe. And not really in the sense that, well, I surrender the manifestation to you, but in the other sense where I don't want this anymore. I'm not working, I'm not fighting, I'm not obsessing on this anymore. I just embrace fate, whatever that may be, good or bad. I'm done desiring, I'm done dreaming, I'm done working, wanting, manifesting. I'm done with all of that. Let your truth and let your will be done regardless of what that is. And if you might have been one of these people, you will also get a very powerful confirmation of why you needed to surrender that and what's taking its place. But this is just like a mini moment. It is just like a very faint experience of that which you're gonna get. Now, to be careful with, this is also very, very self-explanatory. We have the Elder of Air, which is the Knight of Swords, and the Awakening, which is the Judgment. And one of the meanings is, in whatever subject you're seeking the truth, especially next week, as in this week, it means just judge for yourself, perfectly detached. Make your own judgment, and not by, reading stuff or having conversations, and when something very, very strongly resonates, no, not even that. Just totally detach yourself, like, as in you know nothing, your mind is totally empty, you have no knowledge, nothing resonates whatsoever, and from this state of emptiness, from the state of primordiality, as if you would just be a 3-year-old child trying to make sense of something. From that state, judge from yourself and not through what resonates or anyone else's. Because that will be your truth. That will be the meaning for you specifically and personally. And it might even shock you, because everything that might have resonated until now will simply just fade away, and you will, even if your own conclusion and judgment may be something very extremely simple, extremely raw, well, it will still be what you actually need. The other message I'm picking up is, be careful what you share on social media, or better said, be careful what you read on social media, because this might be a moment when you are required to detach from all of that. We are entering a very quantic period when, yes, the karma is building up, but it's not just the karma, it is also what you give, it is also what you project. And if you want something truly authentic to emerge in your life, then don't project anything that you might receive from the collective consciousness. This is about you and you alone, and not as much about the collective. So in order for you to have your input in the most authentic way, at least for a day or for a couple of days, detach from the collective, even if you belong there, even if it's basically your job, even if that is very helpful and useful to you. This is where mentally, at least, you have to be solo at least for a day. Because even if you belong to a group, even if you support a group, even if you share a group's truth, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But within that group, you're still an individual, and right now it's very important for you to find your own specific connection, uninfluenced by anyone or anything, not even the love and benevolence of others. It is just you and the divine, so to speak. And last but not least, this also means that be very careful what you feed your energy into, because chances are that this week, raising awareness, for example, and focusing on what the dangers are in this situation, that situation, may that be political, economical, scientific, philosophical, spiritual subject. This week, if you feed energy into what not to do, or what the problem is, what needs to change, what is not working, anything related to finding the flaw in something, well, chances are you're making it that much stronger, because you will feed your attention and energy to it. So you will actually do the opposite of what your intention is. You will simply not let it die, or you will simply make it exist more predominantly, because you will feed your attention to it. It will matter for you very much. When right now you should be doing the opposite. You should actually be feeding a certain kind of negation or ignorance into what you don't want to experience, what the flaw is, what irritates you, what you don't agree with. Basically just focus on, well, yes, I don't agree with it, or it irritates me, I don't want to have it in my life, in my future, in the world. And that is exactly why, at least mentally, I'm rising above it. It doesn't matter for me, because I'm stronger. I'm not uncreating it, so to speak. I'm just starving it. Like, for example, this is such a really good way to get rid of negative entities. When you fight them, well, that is of course one of the methods, but you have to rise above. You necessarily have to be stronger, but you can also fight it with your weakness, in the sense that you simply starve it. Like you're too busy, you're too ignorant to acknowledge what it wants to pump into your mind, into your emotional sphere, into your consciousness. And because it wants to, basically like every being in existence, conserve its own energy, it won't have the patience to, let's say, tempt you forever to focus on something so that you can give it life. It will just fall off from you and go somewhere else. So this concludes this week's energy update. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the likes, shares, and beautiful comments. If you'd like to support my work, you can find the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you everyone. Have a wonderful and amazing week. Until next time, bye for now.